Hi everyone, good morning. This is Bina, and I wanted to share some additional tips on how to resolve conflict. So whether you're coming from the medical industry or you're coming from academia, for example, because I've had questions come up in the past couple of weeks from both sectors, how do you go about resolving conflict, especially if you are a doctor who has been accused of stealing patients, or you are a professor who has been accused of not grading on time? Right? Two different issues, two different sectors, but the issues are very similar, and here's why. When you're a doctor and you're accused of stealing patients, and all of a sudden you're put on administrative leave, right? Or you're a professor and you're accused of not grading on time, and the class has been removed from underneath you, because that does happen. What do you do? So as the person who is on the defense now, on that end, one of the things to do, and I tell this to everybody, is to look at the policies and procedures. If the policies exist and they have and you are following them, then you should be fine, despite the accusations. Because sometimes the accusations come from nurses, for example, if you're a doctor, from other doctors, if you are in a group practice, or from other professors in your peer group, or perhaps your team lead, who may not be doing a good job checking on you, and then just on the willy-nilly miscalculates and has a misperception. Or you can have a dean, an associate dean from another area that has nothing to do with the course you're teaching. So for example, if you're teaching a business course, okay, and the dean from, I don't know, the STEM, the science and technology area is apparently, looking over you or grading you or being evaluated, and they don't understand the dynamics, and then they accuse you of not grading on time, which you did do. But sometimes if you're grading on a MacBook, for example, the grades don't stick. Even I can tell you that, because I have that issue. So there are many factors to look at, and one of the first things to do in both types of issues, because again, they're very similar, you're on the defense, is to look at the policies and procedures. If they exist, and I say that very loosely because sometimes they don't exist, or if they do, there are many loopholes in there. Are you following what you're supposed to do? And if the answer is yes, then you wonder, what is the inquiry on, right? Why am I being investigated for something that I didn't do? So the downside to this is that you have to let the investigation take its course. It's like a virus, right? You have to let the meds kick in and let the virus meds take action and to kill the virus in your body. It's no different here. Look at the investigation, let it happen, participate in it, because you have to give your side of the story. And if you're not given that opportunity, okay, to give your side of the story, then send an email. But it's important to take the emotion out of it. And I will do a video separately on how to write an email with no emotion, because that's very important. But what to do is, when you have the opportunity to meet with HR, because that's usually the person who does the investigation, is to ask them what was said, why was it said, and how long has this been going on? And the reason is because sometimes they start the investigation 3 months before, 2 months before, a week before, and all of a sudden you're accused. And in the case of academia, you don't know, it could have started 2 terms ago. It could have been an issue, one little issue 2 terms ago, and now you're being held for something that you shouldn't be, because everybody should get a pass, especially if, let's say, you had to miss a week because your child was in the hospital in ICU, right? Let's say if it's circumstances like that. So when there's a lack of understanding and the lack of knowledge from the HR side, because that does happen, because they don't know what has happened. They just know that they've received allegations and now they're looking into it. The term investigation is very misleading. It's really just an inquiry, it's a fact-finding, but it's scary when you're on the defense side and you're being investigated. That is very scary, no doubt. So look at the policies and procedures, ask what's happening, and ask the investigators, what was I accused of? Are there facts to prove what happened? Because I would like to give my own set of facts. I'd like to give my own set of my side of the story of what happened and what I'm following it. And if I was doing something wrong, for example, if I was switching patients in the system at the patient's request, or I told the nurse that I did this, then do I have to go back and document it every time? What is the process? Because the process, it doesn't say, or it's not clear enough, right? And if that's the case, let's say you did follow the process, you did have the nurse switch it for you, or you are, as a provider, allowed to do that because it's a group practice norm, then that's okay, all right? But you have to have documentation for yourself every step of the way. And this is when we don't realize why documentation is important until we're stuck in a situation where we're investigated. So it's important to just document in your charts, for example, in the system, in the notes section, that as per the request of the patient, I've switched from Dr. So-and-so to so-and-so. Go back and tell your group practice, the doctor you're taking the patient from, that, hey, the patient requested this. Is it going to be okay with you? And if you'd like, talk to the patient, or sometimes go talk to the nurse and have the nurse do it. Whatever the case is, have your ducks in a row so that when the situation arises and you're being investigated, you know what's happening. Because sometimes you are being targeted, and that does happen. Personality conflicts get in the way. People feel some kind of way. People are jealous. They don't like that you're getting ahead. They don't like that you're seeing too many patients. Perhaps they don't even understand it. But don't see it from the negative perspective, because you're not going to see that person in the same light again. But when your integrity is questioned, because that's what happens in an investigation, that's when it really hurts you. It stings. And that's when you have to think about, how am I going to get my ducks in a row? So start thinking like an attorney, I would say. Start thinking like an ombudsman. What are the policies? What are the procedures? Was I following them? And if you weren't, admit to it. Just say, I didn't realize I did this. I'm really sorry, and it won't happen again. May I have another opportunity? I would like to have an opportunity to correct my actions, because, I did this. I switched patients because the patient requested it. Okay, or I didn't have an opportunity to grade, and I did let the other dean in my school know, the school that I teach at, let's say you teach at the business school, know that I'm going to be out because my child is in ICU, right? Or because I've had an emergency. You've let your team lead know, but that communication piece didn't get to the person who is now looking into you. So, and they could have a personal vendetta against you. There could be targeting. There's all sorts of reasons why people are investigated. And sometimes, for the most part, I'll be very honest with you, it's a he said, she said thing, and there is no evidence. And when that happens, fall back on the policies and fall back on your actions. And if you are doing everything right, what are they going to hold you? What are they going to hold you to? Okay. If you have any questions, or if you're stuck in a dilemma like this, give me a call or send me an email. My email is bina@transformationalparadigms.com. I always include it, or you may go to my website and email me there. But I always include my email in the comments below. So have a wonderful day. Take care.